Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of Vertical Stars Podcast fourth season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing interview because Ray Fawkes boards the mothership to discuss the Phantom from Madcave Comics. Now, come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Fawkes. Thank you for coming to Vertical Stars Podcast.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for coming back to the show. You were on a couple of years ago with Mr. Zub, so thank you so much for coming
Mhm.
on. So,
It's my pleasure.
So we start with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for comics and who are your earliest influences?
My earliest influences. Well, I mean, when I started reading comics way back when, I was mostly reading like X-Men and Batman and Spider-Man. But then I would say my influences that got me really writing comics, the main one was definitely Alan Moore with his Swamp Thing comics.
Hmm. He's a fantastic writer. So when you're thinking about great writers like Alan Moore some of the others, how like what kind of things did you like pull away from them thinking, and wanted to absorb into your own style, or is it like great, but like for me, like there's some writers that are fantastic, but I know that's not my style. So I know you appreciate it, but you know that's never going to be how you are going to write your stuff. How did it go with your favorites?
Yeah, well, I mean, so Alan Moore was one of my favorites, and definitely one of the other inspirations was Frank Miller, with comics like Daredevil, Born Again. Um, I think Frank Miller falls more into the category of the writer who I really appreciated, but it wasn't so much my style. But Alan Moore, what drew me to his work, and definitely something that I try to do as well, is the sort of the poetry in his prose, and a little bit of structuralism too. I mean, Alan Moore was a heavy structuralist, um, especially with something like Watchmen. I'm not as much of a structuralist as him, but I do like to play with the form.
Well, you're now the writer of The Phantom, the free comic book day, The Phantom.
Mhm.
Now, first off, how do you get involved in the project? And when we're talking about The Phantom as being the free comic book day, is that kind of like a tease for an ongoing? Is that already something that's been approved and going forward, or is this like a one and done?
Uh, well, it's not supposed to be a one and done. There's definitely supposed to be more. I don't quite know the details of that yet. I'm not sure. If Mad Cave has released details on it yet, but there will be more if I have anything to do with it. Um, I got involved with it because I did a book for Mad Cave called Sanction, and I now have a book coming from them, another one called Blue Palo Verde. And after I did those two projects, after they were written, we were just talking about future things, and sort of off the cuff, they asked me, would I be interested in licensed material? And I said, it really depends on the material, and they said that they had a hold of the license for the Phantom, and I was like, um, very interested. I know he's a character with a storied history, a very long history, and he's one of the original superheroes. He's the one who he created some of the sort of iconic things we always associate with superheroes. People always talk about how the Phantom is the first known superhero in a comic strip to have the sort of white eyes behind the mask.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of stuff about him that's really, really interesting, and so yeah, as soon as they mentioned him, I said that I would pull a pitch together, and we got rolling after that.
Well, and that's really cool. I think one of the most important things, especially with indie publishers, especially the smaller publishers, is building that relationship with the talent, right? And it sounds like Mad
Mhm.
Cave has developed that relationship with you, has been able to build upon it. So, what is it about Mad Cave that makes them a company that you want to work for?
Well, I mean, part of it is some of the people at Mad Cave are people I've worked with before at previous companies. I mean, Mike Martz, who's at Mad Cave, I've been working with him since my days at DC. So that's, we're going back about 10 years there. But as far as the company itself goes, Mad Cave is one of those kind of like, as you say, like a bit of a smaller company. So they're a bit scrappier, and they're willing to um, sort of flow with the creators, and it's just more exciting. There's a bit more freedom, and there's a little bit more room for experimentation, but there's also just like it's really more like the writer and the artist are part of the creative team, that are being listened to. I find my experience at some of the larger companies that can sometimes be the case, or it can sometimes be a lot more of a top-down directed thing. I know I'm never really going to get an instruction from the top at Madcave to like change the direction of the story or anything like that. And so obviously I love that.
And as you mentioned, your creative team, the artist on the book is Russell Olson.
Mhm.
Is this someone you worked with previously, and how did he get involved in the project?
No, we brought Russell on board for this Free Comic Book Day issue, and I'm so glad we did. His style is exactly what I wanted for this book. It's very classic. It's very timeless, which I think matches really well with the Phantom. It's like
Hmm.
super fun action and adventure, not too gritty, but not too cartoony. It's just like right in the sort of Goldilocks spot, I think, for a cool, fun story about the Phantom.
So when you guys are working together, obviously partnerships in comic books are vary greatly. There's ones that are very tight, and they talk about scenes, breakdowns, things of that nature. There's ones where I've talked to some comic book writer, they're like, "Well, I actually haven't talked to my artist before. We just had like emails, stuff like that." And then and obviously there's maybe plus and minuses to different approaches. With Mr. Olson. Are you guys like discussing literally breakdowns? Is it something where you would do full script and he kind of just does his interpretation of everything?
I write full script. That's just the way I like to write things. But Russell is 100% free to shift things around, change up the number of panels on the page, change the way the pages are sort of laid out. Anything like that is good with me. I trust him a lot. We've talked a lot, and he shows me all the layouts and breakdowns, and we always, discuss them. I've actually never had a change that I require him to make. And in all of this Free Comic Book Day issue, I thought he did a stellar job right from the get-go, right from the moment he started to design the characters, and he was like bang on exactly what I wanted. Um, but we talk about stuff and we definitely have a back and forth if we need it. Like if there's a change he wants to make, he talks to me about it. If there's a reason that can't change, I talk to him about it. And it's very easygoing. It's a very strong partnership, I think. You'll see when the book comes out, the final result, I think, shows like a team that's really sort of all on the same page.
Now, one thing I'm going to hit you on this question one more time. Let's say hypothetically, the Phantom moves into its ongoing phase after the Free Comic Book Day.
Mhm.
Are we talking about Russell Olson as being that artist, as already something that's been discussed that you know of, or is he Free Comic Book Day? Thank you.
I would love it. If listen, my ideal would be that we get to move into a full series and Russell is the man drawing the book. Um, we'll see. We'll have to see.
Now, as you mentioned also about the Phantom, is that he's been around since 1936. And so, for those people who don't know the magic dates, that's 2 years prior to Superman and 3 years before Batman shows up. So, I mean,
Hmm.
he literally is. Because I think a lot of people, and I kind of thought for a long time that Superman was like the first, he's the first superhero, but Phantom does beat him by 2 whole years, which is significant. Um, So when you think about Phantom and why he survives, because let's face it, there's a lot of characters that fall by the wayside, especially after the golden age of comic books when they kind of shut down for a little while. Why do you think the Phantom is one that still made it through?
You know what? I think he's just very classic and iconic, and the concept behind him is so simple and fun. He's basically a jungle adventurer who fights against pirates and criminals. Like um he's not a very complicated character as far as, his motives. Um, he's just really like an appealing, fun, like I think, it's a classic, like he's of his time in that, in the 30s and 40s, the sort of swashbuckling adventurer was very popular.
Hmm.
But in a way, that kind of adventurer has never gone out of style. And I think every time people kind of try to veer away from it, they always come back. You always see through the decades different versions of the sort of the adventurer, the crime fighter. And he's just a really great example of a really sort of powerful distilled version of that.
Now, again, with a character that's been around since 1936, the question that's often going to be brought up quite often is that how do you make a character almost, well, he's 89 years old of a character, and make sure that a modern audience can look at him and go, he still feels like a character that speaks to me as a fan, or at the very least, I feel is relevant to whatever's happening, or is it 1936 and it's like sort of like Indiana Jones or something where it's of its time, the time where it takes place, but at the same time, it's sometimes also fun to go back and just enjoy the nostalgic moment.
Yeah, he's more of a like I think he's relatable to people, and people will see in this Free Comic Book Day issue the time of the setting is kind of indeterminate.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be a specific decade or a specific year. We're really boiling him down to his essence, and he's on this adventure, he's in this place, he's doing this thing, and I think that the strength of the story and the strength of his character is that it's relatable no matter how old you are, no matter what time you're in, because he's not a character who's stuck in a specific time period. He's not like a Sherlock Holmes or something like that, where he doesn't really make that much sense outside of his time period. He is a very he's a very sort of time independent character. When you just say an adventuring, a crime fighting, thrill seeking, crime fighting. Oh, I said crime fighting twice. Thrill seeking, like jungle set adventurer. It's cool. He's already cool. That would be cool now.
And I think, I mean, I might be dating myself with this one, and I'm old. Uh, just how it goes. Um, a lot of people are going to be familiar with the Phantom from Billy Zane film.
Yeah, the movie in the was it 1996 or 94, something around there.
Yeah, I know it's mid-90s. I know I was a teenager when it came out.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about interpretations, how close does that film get to how the interpretation of Phantom is going to look?
I liked the film. There was things about it to enjoy, but really when I was starting this project and putting together, a Free Comic Book Day script for the Phantom, I was really looking to the Phantom comic strips.
Hmm.
Um, I think his truest version is obviously going to be the original version, and I wanted to make sure I was being as loyal to that as possible. I wasn't really too worried about other interpretations of him, like the more modern comics, let's say, or the movie or anything like that.
I think the challenge of doing a free comic book day comic book is that because it's at the moment a one issue, you had to tell a lot of story in a very short period of time. Because usually the free comic book day comic books too are usually a little bit thinner as well than the normal comic books, if memory serves. Am I correct in this particular case, or is it going to be the same basic
I think
line?
this is a full length comic. This is
Okay.
a regular length comic. But yeah, you have to tell a full story in the 20 pages or 22 pages. I can't remember which. And we told a full story. I think it's a really solid Phantom story. I think old Phantom fans hopefully are going to love it. I definitely think new people are going to think it's cool. Um, and yeah, it's got a beginning, middle, and an end.
When you're thinking about the free comic book day comic book, is it does it exist as because often when they do with some of these comics too, they'll do like the origin story, they kind of retell, or is this already he's already the Phantom, he's already established, and it's kind of starting off in the middle of his career somewhere.
It's not an origin story. It's just a straight out Phantom adventure story. The story does make his origins clear for anyone who's never seen him before. Obviously, I have to do that. But it's not a retelling of his origin. Yeah.
Now, the other interesting thing about the Phantom with Madcave Studios that he's currently appearing in Defenders of the Earth, which is written by Dan Didio.
Mhm.
Does your Phantom exist in the same universe as Didio's Phantom?
Yes, though we are not dependent on each other.
Can you
Uh,
kind of go
hmm?
into can you kind of go into a little bit what you mean by that?
Well, I just mean that, yes, it is supposed to be the same Phantom in the same world, but what he's doing, what Dan Didio is doing in his book is not beholden to what I'm doing here, and vice versa. I don't mention anything about the Defenders of the Earth in this Free Comic Book Day issue.
Does that change at all how you interpret the Phantom? Because the original Phantom, obviously, Defenders of the Earth is from the '80s cartoon that came out.
Yeah.
Before that, obviously, he's been known as someone who's the kind of existence within his own universe, as it were.
Yeah.
Is there a does the character is there any fundamental change to the character if Defenders of the Earth exists in the background?
Well, I mean, uh, I am being careful not to do anything that contradicts the idea that he could be in the Defenders of the Earth. But no, not really. Like we are each telling our own story, and Dan's got his style, and I've got my style. So, and I don't think either of us would want to force the other one into something.
Hmm.
So we've each got our own thing going on, and both books, can be enjoyed, but they don't need to, be together.
Now, my knowledge of the Phantom, which I will admit is somewhat limited, but my knowledge of the character is that it's based on I'm gonna say the true story. It's not, but because it's a fictional character. But basically, as the story goes of the primary origin, there's a legacy Phantom. The Phantom is inherently a legacy character based on the original origin. There's, I think, was it 20 something generations. The Phantom going dating back to the 16th century, 1590 something or other.
Mhm.
Um, is that your Phantom, and which Phantom then is this?
This is the modern Phantom. This is the one that everybody knows from the recent comics. Oh man, now I'm gonna look really bad because I can't remember if he's the 20th or the 21st. I think he's the 21st Phantom. And it's the one that everybody's familiar with from the comic strips and the comic books and such. And it's the same one who's in the Defenders of the Earth. He has access to the records of his legacy, which is mentioned in the book.
Now, the interesting thing about a character that has that legacy, I mean, 21 different Phantoms have been history. It's sort of like when you talk about Batman when you had like Dick Grayson, maybe Damian Wayne, and they all become Batman. There's always a question of motivation. Um, does the current Phantom fight evil more because of like the morality of it, or because there's an obligation to that legacy that makes him have to be the Phantom again? Because in other words, and how is it conceivable? I'm not saying it is in the with yours, that the Phantom, the gentleman playing the Phantom, who is the Phantom right now, could walk away. How obligated is he to continue the legacy of his family?
Well, I mean, the obligation is something that can be thought about and discussed, but he definitely has a strong moral reason to be doing what he's doing, and there are such powerful advantages to him being the Phantom. The whole idea, he has such a legend built around him that it almost becomes kind of a shield and a weapon. There are so many people who have heard of the Phantom in his world who are afraid of the Phantom or who know to at least respect him. I think if he took off the mask, he would still be fighting crime, but he wouldn't have that very powerful reputation at his fingertips.
So has the motivation stayed the same across the different Phantoms? How is he distinct from what's come before?
I definitely would say the motivation has not stayed the same across all the different Phantoms. As far as the current Phantom is concerned, uh, I mean, some is the same and some is different. One thing that readers will notice is this Phantom definitely enjoys what he does.
Enjoys because he's doing good, or enjoy because there's a thrill to it?
Both.
Well, he's a little bit of a thrill seeker.
Yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
a little bit of a thrill seeker. He's a little bit of a he's sort of I'm not going to say happy-go-lucky, but he's definitely an adventurer who enjoys the actual adventure as well as doing good things.
Now, his primary weapons that he'd use are guns. His primary weapon of choice. Where does he stand on the morality of potentially killing the like? Is he more Batman or more Punisher in your opinion?
He's definitely not a Punisher type. He's definitely not like a cold-blooded killer in no sense of the word. In fact, I would say the Phantom does everything he can to avoid killing somebody. Um, Whether or not someone gets killed as a result of his actions is maybe less of his concern than a Batman. But he is definitely not out to like gun people down in cold blood. No, never.
How once again because it's one issue and you're limited in space, but obviously there is some thought of the future. How much of an opportunity have you had to develop supporting cast within the Free Comic Book Day?
Some because space is limited.
Yep.
We don't go too far into his supporting cast. People uh, who um, who know the story will see and definitely recognize his wife Diane in it, but he's 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 really pretty much on his own in this story.
Now, for the listeners, like who's the primary antagonist of the Phantom of this issue?
This issue, it's somebody new.
Are you able to dive into some details on him?
No.
No. Is this I know I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I gotta poke anyway. Is this whoever the antagonist is this someone who is setting the groundwork for a larger plan in place, or is he more of a like the one and done villains, or is this someone that you're thinking larger scale eventually?
This is more of a story that I want people to be able to just jump in and read on its own. So he's kind of a one and done. This is, in terms of continuing story, there's definitely no lack of characters or potential villains for the Phantom to deal with. So I thought there wouldn't really be a problem with just inventing somebody for this story, um, especially because in so doing, for both new readers and old readers, they can see how the Phantom in this version handles people without sort of too much baggage, and without or sort of having to overload the readers on information.
Now, when you're thinking, I think one thing that's interesting about the Phantom, like I said, I think his visual is very well known. His some of his storylines very well known. I'm someone, like I said, I'm not perfectly, greatly versed on the Phantom, unfortunately, but I don't actually know his rogues gallery. Does he have an established, a well-known rogue, or is his? Would you say it's not?
He does. He has sort of recurring villains, and he there is a specific crime organization that he frequently comes up against. He also fights against corrupt government officials, um, pirates, air pirates. Like there's all kinds of sort of villains, but they all kind of do circle this one organization that's in the older Phantom comics that I certainly would love a chance to explore.
I would have to say, corrupt government is a pretty timely topic. Don't you want to touch on that one? You're doing pretty well. So
um, yeah.
yeah, so for the free comic book day, like I said, I know there's only so much you can give away. What can we look forward to in that first? Well, I keep saying first as if the assumption is that it's going to be an ongoing, but the in the free comic book day comic book, what can we look forward to?
Well, I mean, you can look forward to a really fun story, a great like jungle adventure where it's the Phantom is, right down in there trading blows with some pretty nasty characters. There's big jungle predators involved. It's the kind of adventure story that I used to love, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy. There's humor, there's violence, there's um you know, just a lot of fun to be had on every page.
And it's an excellent price point.
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, the Phantom is one of those characters that I always kind of felt remiss that I didn't collect more of because he seems such a fascinating character.
Hmm.
Um, it's nice that Matt Cave, I think, is bringing him back and treating him well, and I think that's something that, like I said, if you especially like if you like legacy of the comic book industry, We forget. I think like that, and I think I forgot as well that he does predate the ones that you think were the first.
Oh yeah, and I just think he's such a like cool, interesting character. Like honestly, I really hope people enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed putting it together, and that, maybe they raise their voices a little bit so that Mad Cave, and King Features and everybody really wants to steam forward with it.
Now, for those who are fans of the Phantom and who will read and love your comic book, um, because it's a free comic book day, it's a little different than other comic books. In other words, the sales numbers are different because it's free and it's being sent out.
Yeah.
So because that changes that kind of dynamic of evidence of of popularity, what can the listeners do who love your comic book, who love the Phantom, and now is looking to help you and help themselves get more Phantom comic books?
Just make some noise about it online, If they read the book and they love it, they should just say so wherever they can and, throw a shout out to Mad Cave for putting together such a cool version of him and hopefully if people just see that the reaction is good, uh it'll help light a fire under them.
So for everyone listening, harass the hell out of Matt Cave on social media, make it happen. Tag
I
tag
don't I
him.
hope I don't get in trouble for that.
Well, I'll help get you a little. So tag him on Reddit, tag him on Blue Sky, tag him on Instagram, tag him on Facebook. Annoy him, make it happen. So what's next for you?
Well, like I said, I wrote a book for Mad Cave that's going to be coming out this summer called Blue Palo Verde as well, which is it's a folk horror book set in the American Southwest, and I hope people love that as well. And then that's the next big piece.
All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Bye.